I am intersex, and I've been secretly crushing on my aloof roommate. I always sneak peeks at his photos, biting my lip to keep from making a sound. On the surface, I compete with him at every turn, fighting fiercely for the top grades, neither of us willing to lose. But when he accidentally discovers my secret, everything changes. He starts parting my bed curtains in the middle of the night, climbing into my bed. "Don't move," he whispers. "Let me look at you." Chapter 1. What's that smell? Smells like blood. Is someone hurt? No, but I smell it too. My roommates checked around before all eyes landed on me. "Marks, are you hurt?" I was wearing earphones, pretending to be on a call. I coldly pulled back my bed curtain. "Not me." I rolled over, keeping up the act. "I'm busy talking to my girlfriend." "Keep it down." "Ooh. Getting cozy with the girlfriend, huh?" They didn't know that I, the first guy in the dorm to get a girlfriend, was lying. How could someone like me have a normal relationship? The so-called girlfriend was just a fabricated illusion. I have an unspeakable secret. I am intersex. I look like a normal guy, but I have female organs inside and get a period every month. It's painful and humiliating. Faking a girlfriend was my excuse to openly buy sanitary pads at the supermarket. Every time I picked them up, I felt like everyone was staring at me. I'm withdrawn, don't talk much, and always keep to myself. Mostly out of fear that my secret will be discovered. To make the act convincing, I read cheesy lines I found online. "Of course I like you. Why would I break up with you?" I deliberately lowered my naturally husky voice. "Just hold on. We'll see each other this weekend." I blew a kiss into the air. "Be good. See you this weekend." Hanging up the non-existent call, I breathed a sigh of relief. Acting was exhausting. Luckily, my roommates bought it. "Marks, your girlfriend is so clingy. So jealous. When will I get a girl?" "Forget it. Look at Marks's face. Even guys would fall for him, let alone girls." I grabbed a pillow and threw it. "Say that again?" All right, shutting up." Whenever we joked around, my eyes would involuntarily drift to Charles. He slept in the bed opposite mine. He was the typical aloof top student, always ranking first, looking like a celebrity, but totally cold to all his admirers. Whenever the guys teased me about my girlfriend, he was the only one who stayed silent, as if he hated hearing about it. My cramps were severe. Too weak to joke anymore, I curled up under my blanket, breaking into a cold sweat. Suddenly, the bed frame creaked. Someone was climbing up. A warm body drew near, bringing a panic-inducing sense of oppression. His legs clamped around mine, his knee pressing between my thighs, as if trying to trap me in this narrow space. He braced himself on either side of me, touching my sweaty forehead with a frown. "You're in pain? Why didn't you say anything?" Meeting Charles's deep eyes, I was terrified. "Can you walk? Let's go to the hospital." "No need," I quickly refused. "I just need some painkillers." At this close distance, I was terrified he'd smell the blood. Charles stared at me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." I breathed a sigh of relief as he got up. But then he suddenly stopped. "I smell blood. Are you hurt? Let me see." I was almost crying from anxiety. "I really don't need to." He checked outside my blanket and reached to pull it back. In a panic, I bit down hard on his hand. Charles hissed in pain. He finally gave up. "Sorry." He silently climbed down. A wave of guilt washed over me. If I were a normal person, could we have gotten along properly? That night, I waited until everyone else had showered before entering the bathroom. After my shower, I felt a bit better. I put my bloody underwear in a basin, ready to wash it. Suddenly, a knock. "Marks, can I come in to grab something?" Startled, my hand jerked, and the basin dropped to the floor with a loud clatter. "Marks, are you okay?" The doorknob started turning. "Don't come in." I frantically pulled on my bathrobe. Then, Charles's cold, calm voice drifted over. "He doesn't like people around when he showers." "Oh, sorry, man. It's fine." Though I dodged a bullet, my heart was still pounding. After washing my clothes, I carefully took them to the balcony to dry. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Charles pressing his lips against the bite mark I'd left on his hand. The guilt deepened. It must hurt. He definitely hates me even more now. In the dead of night, with my roommates fast asleep, I quietly opened my phone. By the dim light, I looked at photos of Charles, all secretly taken when he wasn't looking. Aside from my body's secret, my sexuality was also different from others. In high school, Charles was the top student at the neighboring school, always ranking first in the joint exams. I had always treated him as my goal. When I found out we got into the same university, I was so excited I couldn't sleep all night. To hide my crush, I deliberately treated him as a rival, fighting him fiercely for grades. No one would ever guess I actually liked him. Sometimes I thought, if I were a normal guy, I'd definitely just take the initiative to be his friend, instead of being the distant roommates we were now. I liked him, especially having him sleep right across from me. Listening to his steady breathing, looking at his photos, I felt both bliss and agony. The dorm was so quiet I could hear everyone breathing. I couldn't hold back a soft whimper. The curtain opposite mine shifted. Charles rolled over, seemingly not awake. I held my breath for a long time. Once I was sure there was no movement, I felt safe enough to get up and wash my face in the bathroom. I despised this version of myself. If Charles knew someone like me had thoughts about him, he'd definitely be disgusted. This secret had to stay buried in my heart forever. Chapter 2. That weekend, I woke up early and headed out. I had always told everyone I was in a deeply committed long-distance relationship and that we met up every week. The truth was, I hadn't slept well last night and just wanted to spend a night alone outside the dorms. I sent a message to the dorm group chat. Cover for me during room checks. I'm not coming back tonight. My roommate Derek replied instantly. Ooh, going out to get a room with the girlfriend? I replied, don't talk nonsense, Derek. What's there to be shy about? We all get it. Treat her well, and remember to use protection. I didn't know how to explain. Maybe letting them misunderstand wasn't a bad idea. As I hesitated, Charles sent a message. I won't cover for you during room checks. You don't have the ability to take responsibility yet. You shouldn't be spending the night out with your girlfriend this early on. A surge of rebellion swelled in my chest. None of your business. Derek will cover for me. I have to go out tonight. Derek quickly replied. Don't worry. I've got you. Charles didn't reply again. About 5 minutes later, Derek messaged me privately. Charles is acting a bit weird. He grabbed his coat and went out looking furious. I didn't think much of it. He probably had his own things to deal with. Around 8 p.m., someone knocked on my hotel room door. Who is it? I asked. Charles's voice came from outside. It's me. I opened the door in surprise. How did you know I was here? Charles lowered his eyes. This hotel is owned by my family. I had long heard that Charles was the son of the wealthiest man in the city and that his family's businesses spanned the entire country. Turns out it was true. I felt a bit nervous. What are you doing here? Charles shook the bag in his hand. Afraid you'd forget. So I brought you this. My face flushed completely red. He glanced into the room, his voice deep. Where's your girlfriend? I gripped my clothes nervously and lied. She hasn't arrived yet. Charles's expression grew even uglier. He slowly stepped closer, his breath brushing against my neck. Do you really even know how to do that kind of thing? Do you want me to teach you? I took a step back. No need. She has something going on tonight. She's not coming. Charles looked at me. If that's the case, could you keep me company tonight? I'm a little sad. Charles did indeed look very sad. Without overthinking it, I let him into the room. Later, somehow, it turned into us drinking together. I couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Why are you sad? Charles looked at me deeply. The person I like is always avoiding me. My heart gave a violent lurch. You have someone you like? Charles gave a soft, My mind was instantly thrown into chaos. So, what kind of person is she? He's very beautiful, very hardworking, and gets good grades. His only flaw is that he always tries to avoid me. I didn't understand. How lucky someone must be to be liked by Charles. And here I was, lacking even the courage to like him because of this deformed body of mine. Feeling miserable, I took gulp after gulp of alcohol. Eventually, I got drunk. I stood up unsteadily. I'm going to take a shower. Charles supported me. You can't stand straight. I'll help you. I shook him off. I don't need you. I didn't know where the anger came from. I tried to unbutton my shirt, but my hands wouldn't listen to me. I couldn't get them undone. I'll help you. Charles walked over. His cool fingers brushed against my exposed chest, easily slipping my shirt off. Then his hands moved down, reaching to take off my pants. I hurriedly pushed him away, desperately guarding my waistband. No need for the pants. Walking into the bathroom, I took off my pants and found blood on my underwear again. As my pants slid to my ankles, my dignity crashed to the floor right along with them. The moment I smelled the blood, I felt an unprecedented rage. I turned on the shower head and scrubbed myself vigorously, as if punishing this organ that shouldn't have grown on my body. I scrubbed my skin raw and red. With the water pouring down from above my head, I couldn't tell if I was crying or not. Suddenly, I stepped on the soap on the floor and fell heavily. Charles immediately pushed the door open and rushed in. I heard a noise. Are you hurt? I lay on the floor, my back to him, completely exposed. I saw his pupils contract sharply. My secret was entirely laid bare before him. Please, please don't tell anyone. At that moment, I truly wanted to just slam my head into the wall and die. I was terrified of seeing contempt, mockery, or disgust in his eyes. Even the slightest hint of it would break me. But Charles's eyes remained as clear as ever. He crouched down and rubbed my head. Don't worry, I won't tell a soul. He pointed at my leg. You're hurt. Let me help you apply some medicine. Chapter 3. 5 minutes later, I sat on the bed wearing a shirt. Charles called the front desk to have medicine delivered. Just leave it at the door. I'll get it myself. 10 minutes later, the medicine arrived. Charles brought it over and crouched in front of me to apply it to the scraped inner side of my thigh. His breath brushed across my sensitive skin, and I bit my lip, trying hard to endure it. Moreover, his gaze kept sweeping intentionally or unintentionally over that hidden place, making me want to curl up. Don't worry, I'll help you keep your secret, Charles said. That night, Charles slept right next to me. I don't know why I didn't kick him out. I just inexplicably felt that this person was trustworthy. He knew my secret, yet showed not a trace of disgust. Guarding this secret alone had been too exhausting. Combined with the effects of the alcohol, I couldn't help but pour my heart out to him. We lay in bed. Actually, my having a girlfriend is fake. If I didn't say that, I'd have no way to openly buy sanitary pads. Charles was silent for a moment. I don't know why, but I felt like the half of his face buried in the blanket was smiling. You really don't have a girlfriend? Of course not. If that's the case, I have a solution. He suddenly leaned closer, making me a bit nervous. What solution? Let me be your girlfriend. Okay? Your acting is terrible. If you keep this up, you'll be found out sooner or later. I froze. But, didn't you say you have someone you like? He looked at me for a moment, then raised a hand and flicked my forehead. Idiot. I was obviously lying to you. I saw you had a girlfriend and didn't want to fall behind, so I just made one up too. That's just how a top student who has to be first in everything operates. I was completely dumbfounded. I never expected Charles to compete with me even over something like this. When I woke up the next morning, I found that Charles had already washed my underwear and hung it up to dry. Seeing me awake, he smiled and said, "It hasn't dried yet. I bought you a new pair." My cheeks burned. I can do this kind of thing myself. Charles smiled faintly. I like packaging presents with my own hands. The anticipation of unwrapping them is very special. I didn't hear him clearly. What did you say? He shook his head. Nothing. Looking at those cleanly washed clothes, a wave of shame washed over me. Charles was too good to me. He and I were two completely different kinds of people. He was sunny, outgoing, kind, and considerate, always able to notice other people's difficulties. But I was despicable and vulgar. If he knew that I did that kind of thing to his photos every night, he would definitely be disgusted. No matter what, I had to guard this to the death. I could never let him know I had those kinds of thoughts about him. Otherwise, we couldn't even be friends anymore. After getting dressed, we returned to the dorm together. We didn't have classes on Monday morning, so our roommates slept until lunchtime. Hearing the commotion, Derek sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes. Neither of you came back last night. Where did you go? Charles smiled and said, I went to drop something off for him. Derek joked, You really take care of Marks like he's your son. The guy goes to get a room with his girlfriend, and you, playing dad, actually run over to drop things off. If Marks didn't know what to do in bed, would you have provided on-site instruction too? Charles nodded as if imagining the scene. That wouldn't be out of the question. I couldn't help but interrupt. Stop talking nonsense. Nothing happened last night. After classes in the afternoon, I went to the library to study. Charles seemed to have gone out. I'd heard his family's business was massive. His father had handed over a portion of his assets to him when he started university to hone his skills. He hadn't even graduated yet, but he'd already shown a talent for business, doing exceptionally well. Not only that, but even his grades were slightly better than mine. It really is true that comparing yourself to others will just piss you off. At 9 p.m., Charles returned to the dorm. We didn't talk much, but around 11 p.m., Charles opened his voice messages. His voice was deep and gentle. Baby, good night. The next second, my phone received that voice message. When I put on my earphones and heard it, I almost threw my phone across the room. I suddenly remembered. He said he would help me keep my secret and play the role of my girlfriend. I was stunned right then and there. He was serious. Derek couldn't help but peek his head out. Charles, you got a girlfriend? Charles nodded, giving a soft, Derek immediately got excited. No way. Now there are two guys with girlfriends in our dorm. Our other roommate Richie chimed in. What do you know? Charles never lacked people chasing him. If he's willing to date this time, he must have met someone he really, really likes. Derek asked, Charles, what kind of person is she? Charles looked at me and laughed softly. Very beautiful, very cute. Tastes sweet. I want to kiss him every day. Wow, that's so unfair. You guys are so sweet. I really couldn't listen to this anymore and pulled the blanket over my head. Richie noticed something was off with me and nudged Derek with his elbow. All right, stop talking. Marks seems to always compete with Charles. Now that Charles has a girlfriend, Marks probably thinks Charles's girlfriend is better than his own. So he's upset again. They spoke very quietly, but I still heard them. It was true. In everyone's eyes, I seemed to want to compete with Charles in absolutely everything. It was normal for them to think that way. From a normal person's perspective, someone like me who compares everything is actually quite annoying. But I just wanted to show off in front of him, as if doing so would catch his attention. I didn't know how Charles viewed me. Chapter 4. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Whenever I have insomnia, I do that. So, I subconsciously searched for Charles's photos on my phone. My roommates were already snoring. It was safe now. Looking at those secretly taken photos and imagining Charles touching me, my ears involuntarily turned red. I bit my lip hard, trying to suppress my increasingly rapid breathing. Just then, my bed suddenly moved. Immediately after, the bed curtain was pulled open. My legs went weak from fright. Charles was looking at me with interest. Not asleep yet? I made sure my little actions just now hadn't been discovered, but I was still very nervous. I asked quietly, What are you doing here? Charles tilted his head. Missed you. Shoo. Keep quiet. You don't want them to know your secret, do you? I was close to tears and quickly exited my phone's photo gallery. I did like Charles, that was true, but right now I was inexplicably a little afraid of him. After all, he held the secret I was most terrified of others knowing. With red eyes, I said, You said you wouldn't tell them. Charles smiled and teased me softly. I can help you keep your secret, but what's in it for me? I desperately tried to think of what I could give Charles. Charles was very smart and didn't need my help with homework. He even completed every group project all by himself. He didn't need me to highlight key points for exams either. I even wanted to steal his notes to read. Unable to think of anything, I finally said timidly, I can give you money. Charles seemed amused by my words. Idiot. Who wants your money? He leaned in gently. I'm very curious. Aside from that part, how else is your body different from others? For example, if I touch you, will your skin turn red easily? His tone was very serious, like he was conducting an academic discussion, leaving me no room for dirty thoughts. Maybe top students are just like this, always full of curiosity about unfamiliar things. I didn't overthink it and considered it seriously. I think so. I often get bruises all over, but I'm not sure. Do you want to touch and see? As soon as the words fell, Charles's eyes darkened, and his Adam's apple bobbed. I could even feel his suddenly accelerated heartbeat. His voice was hoarse. Do you know what you just said? I blinked. Did I say something weird? I was clearly just having a serious discussion. Charles's Adam's apple rolled. Acting like this will make me think you're inviting me. I was even more confused. What invitation? Just then, Derek, who had been fast asleep, rolled over, yawned, and got out of bed, seemingly heading to the bathroom. Afraid of Charles being discovered in my bed, I quickly threw the blanket over him and pressed him into my arms. Listening to the sound of running water from the bathroom, my body tensed to the absolute limit. Felt like doing something bad and almost getting caught. Charles's body was pressed tightly against mine. I could feel his solid abs. Charles moved restlessly. Afraid he'd be discovered, I reached out to pin down his wandering hands. Charles had long, well-defined fingers. He backhanded my grip, holding my hand and pinning my wrist against the pillow. Derek returned to bed after using the bathroom, completely oblivious to us. I breathed a sigh of relief. By now, I was so nervous I was covered in sweat. I had zero sleepiness left and only hoped Charles would leave quickly. I didn't know if heaven was punishing me for having inappropriate thoughts about Charles by making me endure this embarrassment. Fortunately, Charles finally let me go. He didn't do anything. He just rubbed my head and left. But that night, I suffered from insomnia. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamt that Charles held my hand in the dark and slipped the phone right out of my grasp. The him in my dream, after discovering I was intersex, also discovered my second secret. That I liked him. He let out a low chuckle. What's the point of fakes? Want to try the real thing? In the dream, I was positioned by him in a way where I couldn't resist. And then it was proven. My skin was indeed very sensitive and easily turned red from being gripped. The next day during class, I was in a daze, my mind entirely filled with that strange dream. How could Charles possibly do that kind of thing to me? Chapter 5. During the break, a senior from the student council came over to talk to Charles. I couldn't help but look toward them. I didn't know what they were talking about, but Charles actually gave her a faint smile. Charles had a cold personality and rarely smiled at anyone. At that moment, I stared a bit blankly, a sudden, inexplicable sourness welling up in my heart. Charles had said he had someone he liked. It seemed he wasn't lying to me. I had foolishly thought he would only smile at me. I was flattering myself way too much. Just then, the senior walked over to me. "Junior, you're really cute. Let's exchange contact info." I originally wanted to refuse, but thinking of Charles's smile at her just now, I agreed as if possessed. Sure. Actually, quite a few girls had pursued me in the past, but eventually, they all pivoted to liking Charles. He really was more charming than me. So, while I liked him, I also treated him as a rival. My feelings were just that contradictory. Because of my physical defect, I had been incredibly competitive since childhood, wanting to be first in everything. But after getting into university, ranking behind Charles in every exam made me very unwilling to concede. I didn't want my emotions to be controlled by him, even if I liked him so much. After adding my contact info, the senior smiled and said, "Charles just told me that you're shy around strangers and wouldn't easily give out your contact info." Seems like he was wrong. I looked at Charles. He didn't look too happy. He gave me a cold glance, turned, and walked away. Over the next few days, Charles frequently appeared with the senior, and he often featured in her social media posts. Watching all this left a bitter taste in my mouth. On the day of the school's arts gala, I saw Charles wearing a suit and the senior wearing a gown, both holding microphones and rehearsing on stage. No wonder they had been together so much these past few days. They were preparing to host the gala. Charles looked truly handsome while seriously rehearsing. I rarely saw him dressed so formally. With the stage lights shining on him, I couldn't help but swallow hard. I took out my phone, wanting to take a picture of him. Charles seemed to notice and turned his gaze toward me. I hastily changed direction, pointing the camera at the senior and hitting the shutter button. The guilt of almost getting caught made my cheeks burn. My ears were definitely completely red. Charles's heavy gaze fell on me, and I could feel his displeasure. He was probably disgusted that I was taking photos of the senior. At that moment, my mood plummeted. I didn't understand why he was looking at me with such a serious expression. Did he like the senior, so he didn't want me taking pictures of her? I had heard that people in love are very possessive. That must be how he felt about the senior right now. I silently put my phone away. During the gala, the two coordinated perfectly and hosted flawlessly. Before it even ended, I headed back to the dorm early. After the gala, Derek messaged saying he and Richie were going out drinking tonight. I suddenly grew nervous. Didn't that mean I'd be alone with Charles tonight? I quickly stood up, wanting to find a place to hide, but my path was blocked by a figure at the door. "Where do you want to go?" I felt nailed to the floor, unable to speak. And nowhere. I tried to walk around him, but Charles raised his arm, blocking the door. An inexplicable sense of danger swept over my entire body. It was just the two of us in the dorm right now, and Charles felt strange tonight. He held out his right hand. "Give me your phone. I'll help you delete the photos." My face went pale. "What photos? I don't know what you're talking about." Charles furrowed his brow slightly. "The photos you took of the senior tonight." My heart sank. Now I was almost certain Charles really liked the senior. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come back and fiercely demanded I delete the photos. I had clearly told myself that someone like me didn't deserve a normal romance. It was good enough that someone as dazzling as Charles didn't despise me after learning my secret. I couldn't extravagantly hope for him to like me too. But why did my heart still hurt so much? I took a step back, my eyes turning red. "No, I won't delete them." Charles's eyes darkened, looking a bit intimidating. Rebelliously, I hid my phone behind my back. "Marks, be good." "I won't." He grabbed my wrist, saying in an undeniable tone, "If you won't delete them, I'll delete them for you." Charles was a head taller than me and much stronger. When he pinned me against his chest to snatch the phone, I despairingly realized I couldn't move at all. Just then, I suddenly realized an even more serious problem. Aside from the senior's photo, my phone was filled with secretly taken photos of Charles, from freshman year all the way until now. I was doomed. If he found those photos, he'd think I was a pervert and would definitely hate me even more. At that moment, I suddenly burst with tremendous strength and shoved him away. I said no. With red eyes, I added, Charles, don't touch me. I didn't dare look up at his expression, but I knew he had to be furious. Without warning, Charles suddenly reached out, grabbed my collar, pulled me toward him, and kissed my lips forcefully. He locked the door and pressed me against the wall, his hand cradling the back of my head, gentle but carrying a fierce possessiveness. I was kissed breathless. His hand slipped under the hem of my shirt. My whole body tensed up, and my voice trembled. Charles, what are you doing? He looked down at me, his expression unreadable. What am I doing? What do you think? I trembled slightly. Why are you doing this? Are you punishing me? Just because I took a photo of the senior? His voice was cool, devoid of emotion. Yeah, just because of that. I broke down. Do you like her that much? So much that just because I took one picture of her, you have to treat me like this. Charles's hand paused. After a long while, he let out a laugh born of sheer frustration. It's because I like you, I want you. Do you still not get it? At that moment, I felt as if I had forgotten how to breathe. Charles liked me? I stared at him blankly. How could you like me? Don't you find me disgusting? Charles frowned. Why would you think that? I pursed my lips. There was a guy before who said he liked me. He treated me with meticulous care, making me slowly start to trust him. But when he found out the secret of me being intersex, his eyes filled with a contempt I had never seen before. After that, he distanced himself from me. I used to not feel inferior about my body, but when someone I cared about left because of it, I became incredibly cowardly. From that day on, I decided to hide this secret for the rest of my life. While I was dazed, Charles bit my ear. I have never minded your body. I think it's beautiful. I like you no matter what you are. I've liked you from the very first moment I laid eyes on you. Chapter 6. When Derek messaged to say he wasn't coming back tonight, I was already dizzy and disoriented from Charles. Charles went to the bathroom to wash my soiled clothes, while I lay on the bed in a daze. Even now, I hadn't fully recovered from the fact that Charles actually liked me. All this time, I had been looking at Charles's photos to hype myself up. Who would have thought that one day, all my fantasies would come true? It was even more than I had imagined. I suddenly remembered something and hurriedly took out my phone, wanting to delete all the photos of Charles the First had secretly taken since freshman year. I had just experienced Charles's abilities in that regard firsthand. If I let him discover that I had so many of his photos hidden in my phone, he would know that I used to stare at him like a crazed secret admirer. He would definitely repeat what happened tonight with double the intensity. I absolutely could not let that happen. I had to delete them quickly while he was still in the bathroom. I opened my phone's photo gallery, my fingers swiping furiously across the screen as if racing against time. Just then, someone pressed down on my shoulder. My entire body stiffened. When did Charles come over? Why wasn't there any sound at all? Seeing the screen on my phone, Charles slowly smiled. What are you doing? I was so terrified I lost my grip, and the phone dropped to the floor. Charles picked it up, saw the photos clearly, and didn't say a word. My heart was doing somersaults. Charles, listen to my explanation. It's not what you think. I'm doomed. I'm doomed. All my secrets are exposed. Not a single one left. After looking at them, Charles just smiled, revealing an expression of profound relief. So, the reason you wouldn't let me look at your phone was to hide this. I actually thought you were hiding someone else you liked in your phone. He gently kissed my forehead. What are these few photos? Do you want to see my phone? There are more photos of you in there than you could possibly imagine. Back then, how could I have ever known? While we were fiercely competing for grades, both of us were actually using the excuse of taking pictures of the teacher's presentation slides to secretly take pictures of each other. If you enjoyed this story, remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.